Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Hi, Chris Ferebee. Nice to meet you. Good morning. Chris. Good to see you. Hi, Chris Ferebee.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Chris. Good to see you. Good to see you. Is the hot seat here?
Yes, it is. We call it the seat of honor. Well, welcome. Take a minute. It's been a while since we've seen you. Take a minute to catch us up on what you've been doing.
Absolutely. First, I just want to say how excited I am to be back in front of the commission. It's been 4 years since I last appeared in front of you, and really those last 4 years have done nothing but solidify and reinforce my desire to be a judge. And I figured you'd ask me why I want to be a judge. It's been a while since I've been here, so I'll first start with what I've been doing since I last appeared in front of you. You know, I feel like I've continued to grow not only as a prosecutor, but as an attorney and as a member of the community in general. Since I last was here, I first was placed in the position of career criminal prosecutor, and that's where we take on the most prolific offenders and take on all the sex cases in St. Johns County. So for a couple of years, that was my job, and probably doing those sex cases is probably the most challenging thing I've done in my career. Those are extremely tough. They weigh on you emotionally. They take a lot out of you. The decisions you have to make in those cases, you know, it's obviously something that's going to impact someone's lives. You know, I may have a child that came in front of me who was molested by a family member. There may not be enough evidence to go forward. And I may have to sit down there with that family and tell them face to face, look, this horrible thing happened to your child, but there simply isn't enough evidence to go forward, and so I can't prosecute this case. And it's hard to do that, but it's an experience, I think, that it's helped me grow, and it's something I think that would translate well to the bench. You've got to make tough decisions sometimes if that's the right thing to do, and that's what the law dictates. So I think that experience has helped me. And since being a career criminal prosecutor, I was fortunate enough for Mr. Larissa to put me in as the the managing attorney for our office. And I've been doing that for about 2 years now. And I've found that to be extremely rewarding. It's something I've found that I truly enjoy. I like teaching younger attorneys how to be good trial attorneys. And not just that, but how to be good attorneys in general. I think it's important that prosecutors treat the other side with respect, that they understand that defense attorneys, they have different things they're dealing with. They have to run a business. You know, they've got clients they've got to return phone calls to. They've got clients who are sitting there with their life in our hands, so to speak, and they need to hear from their defense attorneys. So if you've got prosecutors that don't return phone calls, who don't respond to defense attorneys, that disrupts their business. So I tried to teach prosecutors in my office, look, you've got to be mindful, respectful, have an open mind. You know, don't be rigid. It's not just tunnel vision as a prosecutor where it's about me. It's about the other side too, and I feel like I've done a good job teaching my attorneys that, and I've gotten feedback from judges and other attorneys that say, hey, you know what, such and such has been a lot better. You know, he's been better in the courtroom, he's been more responsive, and I appreciate that. I take a lot of pride in that, so it's something I'm proud of. And it's another experience I think that would help me for this next step. You know, as a manager, you got to put out a lot of fires. You've got a lot of things thrown at you at once. You've got to be able to resolve disputes in the office. You've got to be able to answer questions from other attorneys quickly when they need your help. I think that kind of responsibility has helped me and will translate well to the bench.
Chris, this may be a family law seat, as you may have heard.
Absolutely.
And considering your background as a career prosecutor, you have a bit of a learning curve. So what would you do to prepare yourself for the role as a family law judge?
Well, first, let me just address some of my experience I think actually has prepared me already for that position. I've done just about every kind of case you can imagine as a prosecutor, and a lot of that has dealt with domestic violence, it's dealt with injunctions, it's dealt with sexual batteries where there's domestic issues involved, or a lot of times there's custody disputes, sometimes there's a divorce going on. I've dealt with termination of parental rights for child abuse cases. So I've done a lot of prosecutions and dealt with a lot of cases where there's a lot of crossover. So I'm very familiar with the issues that are involved in family court, whether it be dependency, whether it be divorce, custody, you name it. I'm familiar with those issues and dealt with them. And I've sit on some boards where, for instance, the child protection team, where we staff cases for dependency and things of that nature. So I do have some experience, I feel like, in the family law arena. But going forward, first of all, I feel like I'm capable of learning what I need to learn. I know how to read the law, I know how to learn the law, and I will get in there and work my rear end off to learn what I need to learn. But I've met recently with Judge Smith for a long time, just talked about his docket in Putnam County, where he's doing it now, and how he's handling it. And he was a career prosecutor as well, and how he prepared. And we talked about that. And a lot of things do translate pretty well. The rules of evidence don't really change, so I feel like I'm prepared. I feel like I've got the ability to do it, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to hit the ground running.
What about your time on the bar grievance committee?
That was a great experience. You get to see another side and how it's incredibly important, obviously, to have us as attorneys be held to a higher standard. And some of the things I witnessed in there and dealt with was disturbing. Some of the links that attorneys will go to make $1 or whatever it is and ignore the rules of ethics it's shocking. So I felt like I was an important role, and I really enjoyed being involved in making all of us look better and making sure that we're all held accountable. So it was a different experience. I almost just felt like I was, we're somewhat judicial in the fact that we're having to analyze each other and say, look, sometimes a guy, well, he just was young and made mistakes, so you got to have some leniency. Then you have someone who's experienced and dipping into trust funds and things like that, which is it's horrible.
Chris,
Yes,
there
sir.
was a 6-year gap between University of Georgia and the School of Law. What happened?
When I was at Georgia, and I outlined in my application, the job I took at Georgia was selling newspapers door to door. Eventually, I was promoted to be a sales manager, and it was a great job, and it was something I enjoyed. And so I stayed in Atlanta, where I'm from, and I worked there for 6 years. And eventually, my father-in-law encouraged me to go to law school, and so I did. And that's when I moved down here to, I lived with him in Ponte Vedra for a while, went to Florida Coastal. And originally the plan was to go work for him one day, but since I've been working at the state attorney's office the last 13 years, I've found what I like to do. I don't want to be in private practice, I want to be in public service.
What is it that has prepared you the best? What life experience or legal experience has prepared you the best to be a circuit court judge, would you say?
I think being a trial attorney over the years and taking on, I've always wanted to take on the more complex cases and not the easy cases. And I think dealing with such a variety of things, I've dealt with any kind of, a lot of financial fraud cases where there's a lot of, dealing with forensic accounting and things of that nature. I've dealt with sexual batteries, which is very complicated issues and a lot of factors that weigh in. I think one of the cases I outlined was a governor's assignment I did in Gainesville, where I was kind of playing the role of a defense attorney and a prosecutor at the same time because my victim was accused of molesting his daughter. And so I think I've dealt with complicated issues in litigation that the circuit judge is obviously going to see just about anything. And so I think that's helped me a lot. And now I think as a manager, and having to step back a little bit and look at and manage other people and give them advice and make sure that everyone's doing their job properly, I think that's another experience I've had that will translate well on the bench. And the years I spent not being an attorney, and having real life experience and understanding the struggles people have to run businesses and to be respectful of their time and those things. And all of that combined, I think, makes me a pretty well-rounded candidate.
Who is the judge that you would most use as a role model or who's most influenced you?
I'm going to go with Judge Maltz right now. I think he is the model for a good judge. He's always prepared. He runs his docket quickly and efficiently. He gives everyone a fair shake. He seems to be able to handle touchy situations very well. For instance, we had a pro se case recently, and he's very good at explaining to them, first of all, the perils of representing yourself, and he's very good at conveying to them, maybe you don't want to do this, but then again, when they do, he handles it with such professionalism. And I think he always is prepared. When you get in the court, he seems like he's a step ahead of you already. If you're in there to argue a 3850 motion, for example, I had recently, it's like he was already ready before I was, and it's impressive. And I really, truly think he is the epitome of what a good judge should be.
Here's a softball. What judge would you not model yourself?
Plead the fifth.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You had a traffic incident, you reported on your application in Georgia in 1993.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you also have a traffic incident in Grayson County, Virginia in 1994?
No, not a traffic incident. It was actually in Independence, Virginia, I believe. I was with some buddies our freshman year of college, and we were in a vehicle driving back from his parents' house it's going to take me, it's been a long time about this one. We were driving back and they decided they wanted a street sign. I was in the back of this hatchback, asleep actually, and I remember actually being awoken to the sign being placed in the car, and I'm, what the heck are you guys doing? And probably 5 minutes later, we were pulled over, and a sheriff's deputy took us to a little place in Virginia and said, what are you boys doing? And we said, the guys wanted the street sign, and the idiots that, you know, I'll take the blame too, I was there, so guilty by association. And eventually they made us come back and do community service by emptying out a house that was being auctioned off for foreclosure. We took all the stuff out of it, and they literally sit there while they auctioned it off, and then it was dismissed. Yes, ma'am.
So that was 1994? Was it? I'm sorry, yeah.
It should have been about 93, possibly,
All right.
92 or 93.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else?
I guess I'll ask the question I've been asking a lot of people. Right now, the opening is here in Daytona on the Circuit Civil. And, I mean, the cases are real backed up. And mine, I know, and other attorneys are doing this. We're not even asking for hearing time because we want to wait for the judge that's going to decide the case. And so, you know, cases have 7 motions pending in complex civil litigation. How do you triage a docket like that if you walk into a docket and there's some in St. Johns County on civil that are real backed up?
Absolutely, and I think that's a big problem. I think my ability has always been to take, first of all, I've handled huge caseloads in the past. At one point, it was Judge Mendoza and I were the only 2 felony attorneys in St. Johns County. We had upwards of 400 cases apiece. And what you have to be able to do is you have to prioritize. You've got to boil it down, not waste time. Figure out what are the important issues that you've got to deal with and not waste time with it. When I go to trial, I have a tendency, if it's a very complicated case with lots of witnesses, I boil that down to its essence. I'm not here to waste the jury's time or the judge's time. I'm going to put forth the evidence that I need and not a bunch of fluff. So I think the same mentality would carry over into being a judge. You've got to prioritize the cases that need to go and to make sure attorneys are held their feet to the fire and said, look, let's not waste time, let's get this done and do it efficiently. So I think I have the right mentality to handle something like that.
All right, Chris, thank you for
Thank
coming
you
in
very
this
much.
morning. We will
Appreciate
let
it.
everyone know by the end of the day.
Thank you so much.